So the unreality check, it's interesting because one of the things through our work with our various mentors over the years, we realised that we tend to live in two different orientations and two different ways of being in the world, and that's obviously something's happening on the inside. The way we're experiencing our life is coming through one of two different lenses. But most people live their life really buying into the illusion of what's going on around them and their circumstances and, really the things that are seemingly happening to them. And sometimes they'll even say, oh, that's happening for me and that sort of thing, and try and convince themselves that that's what's going on. But really, the whole thing comes down to that their circumstances and the people around them have the power, and they don't. That they're very relatively powerless to affect change in their own life to any degree, because they get caught up in circumstances all the time. So something happens in terms of, let's say, money. It's just a good one because it's one we can all relate to really easily, where, money comes in and you might have the pattern of, and then a big bill comes in that unexpectedly takes that money away from you, or money comes in as normal and you know exactly where that's going to be going and you're not going to have a lot left over on the other end of it. Or perhaps you're trying to orchestrate a great relationship, but you often find yourself in arguments with people or your spouse or whatever, and it doesn't really seem to go the way that you want it to go. Eventually, we often usually end up thinking that we're the problem. It's sort of like, oh, well, the common denominator is me, so I need fixing. But really, the only thing is that you've been just in a structure where you're constantly looking at the circumstances and trying to fix them as if they were problems to solve. And one of the things we do know about this orientation is that the ego, it actually really loves problem solving. It loves overcoming things. But what it loves solving problems about is things it's already solved problems about before. So we will often create the same problem, but in a different way in order to see it show up again. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it's on a bigger scale or whatever. So our focus goes into, okay, what's the next thing I need to take care of? And I'll take care of that. And then hopefully I'll be able to get what I want afterwards. It becomes a priority of problem first, and then maybe I'll get to have what I want. And this has sort of been ingrained in us since we were really young. I don't know if you remember, but for me, it was like Saturday morning, beginning of the weekend. I used to love the idea of being out with my friends on my bike, doing whatever, exploring, playing, climbing trees, whatever. But I wasn't allowed to do that until all my jobs were done. So I had to clean my room. I had to do some, whatever it was. There might have been a dishwasher to unpack and all that sort of thing. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I mean, it's great for kids to learn to contribute and all that sort of thing. But what it instills in us really is a real sense of there's things to take care of and they get the priority. And if I don't take care of them, I don't get to have what I want. So that's really our first starting point. But people forget that things can be a little different and that we can actually move beyond that. When we step into adulthood, we can manage things a little differently. We actually become the orchestrator of our own life. And we don't have to be giving our power away to the conditions all the time. Now, the other side of the coin, when we talk about creators, people who are creating incredible things in their life and making big changes, they live in a different orientation. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not paying their bills, they're not cleaning their house, and they're not taking care of the things that need to get taken care of, but they approach it from a very different orientation because their primary focus is basically to look at the truth of the heart-based expansiveness of being here. There really is an unspoken agreement of us arriving here in the human form. We actually agree to come here to be part of that expansiveness of the universe, because the universe itself can't really experience itself. It's just energy. And even though we are energy, we're able to occupy a physical form and we're able to affect other energies. So I can touch Craig and give him a little shove, and that those energies come together and create an experience like that. But the universe is just being energy and just being vibration can't do that. So it relies on us, it relies on animals, it relies on plants, it relies on planets and stars and stardust and all the things that actually make up the physical world to come together and start to interact with each other so that it can actually experience everything. It can experience the full range of what's going on. Just before the call last night, we went out and stood on the beach watching the swans and the sun go down and all that sort of thing. And the two of us were literally right side by side. And even though that was happening in that moment, we were seeing the same things and feeling the same scenario and smelling the smells and feeling the air temperature and all that sort of thing. We were two beings having two very different experiences because of Craig's experiences and stories and references and my experiences and references and how my nervous system responds to going what's coming in, and same with yours, right? So by even just something as simple as that, we were creating a new experience in the universe, as you do every single day. You create a new experience, and that's what you came here to do. But often that experience is not expansive because we're just reliving and circling the drain of all the same things over and over and over again in that problem-solving mode, and getting really stuck into, oh, what are all the things I need to take care of? So what real creators do is they learn that our circumstances don't get to have the priority, because that's not expansive. But what it is that our heart is calling us into does get to have the priority. That's really important, that we're actually moving forward continuously and looking for what's true for us. What's the bigger picture? What are the bigger dreams? How do I get to express my gifts, my talents, the things that I love, my artistic expression even? What is it that I've come here to bring to the world and to really help expand the universe in those ways?
We each have a unique essence that does seek expression as well. And it's like the reason behind that circling the drain, behind that sort of staying focused on our circumstances, is really because it's all about survival. It dates way back to when we were newborn kids. And where we form those ideas about the way it is so that we know how to be in the world and how to survive in the world. So staying stuck on old problems and resolving problems that we've already solved, they might look different, but they're mostly the same. That's just so that we get to stay in the familiar. And the familiar represents safety to us, which is ultimately survival for us. And that's how it was way back then. And we sort of established an orientation of survival, which is our default mode of awareness. It's what we default to when we're not conscious about how we're going about life, what we're focusing on and that sort of thing. But it's not our fullest expression by any stretch of the imagination. You know, it's about, oh, am I okay here? Creating the things that are true for our true nature and purpose here in life. That's beyond that. It sees us leaving that issue of, am I going to survive and be okay, alone, and getting on with creating our bigger picture and our fullest expression in life.
And unconsciously, you know, what is feeling familiar to us varies as well. Like for some people, familiar and safe feels like sitting on the couch watching movies all day, every day, right? As much as you can. That feels familiar and safe, and that's what they try and derive their life to do, right? Which doesn't sound very expansive or really fun after a while. Be good for a little while, maybe. But then you've got other people who, you know, for them, familiar is being in a state of anxiety, whether it's anxiety over bills or a state of anxiety over how they relate to their spouse, or a state of anxiety as to are they being a good enough parent, or whatever it happens to be. And so there's many myriads of what's familiar and safe to different egos, and even though it's not necessarily a nice feeling emotion that goes along with that. So it's a very interesting thing to observe, but we then constantly try and set ourselves up to recreate those feelings over and over again. Now, there's more to it that we probably won't go into today in that depth, but you know, there is obviously not only our nervous system imprinting, but there's also cellular addiction to certain neurotransmitters and hormones that we set up once we become we create a habit in our body and our nervous system, that your body actually craves feeling those ways. So if you've got anxiety imprinted in there, you'll seek out situations to create a sense of anxiety to satisfy the cells that are craving that. So
interestingly, you'll feel like those situations are happening to you. So, you know, they're being caused by somebody or something else, and that you're a victim to what's going on. But the truth of the situation is that you're actually unwittingly creating it so that you can get that, essentially that fix of that cocktail, that particular formula of chemicals that are released when you're under stress. You get addicted to it. So it is another level of discussion.
Absolutely. We've done a lot of coaching over the years with different clients, and when someone comes in with a full-blown dilemma, on every occasion, when we trace it back to when the whole thing started, it came from their dysfunction. It's something they did at the beginning. It's really interesting, and that we're doing these things to ourselves all the time in order to recreate those experiences. And it really is just in alignment with our belief system, isn't it? Yeah. Our beliefs just constantly creating our reality if we're unconscious. I'm sure that everyone has heard of the phrase, your focus creates your reality. So the lens of living in your circumstances is one of beliefs. The things that you're creating over and over again is coming about because you're focusing through the lens of your beliefs. And there's nothing much we can do about changing those beliefs, especially the fundamental beliefs that are imprinted in you by the age of 4 and then well reinforced by the time you're 7. But it's not about getting rid of them. It's about recognizing them and then knowing you have a choice to do something different. And that's where the power comes in, because after a while, you get to feel the resonance of when you're in your well, let's call it shit, when you're in alignment with your belief system, and that you don't have to give that the power. You can actually see life in a different lens, which is that creator lens. And that lens is very different. It's effectively a learning orientation. And with a sense of learning, it's more about openness and curiosity and wonder. And it's a very different state. And it's very much a closer alignment to our state of being in our super consciousness, which sounds like a woo-woo thing, but it is part of our nervous system. It's a part of our mindfulness that people tap into when they're trying to get new ideas. We actually can use it for our whole life. We don't have to use it just for creating a piece of art or a piece of music. And it gives us new information all the time. Even Einstein and even Newton, those two guys seem to be a little bit opposed to each other's models of the world, but they both did things like when they were struggling with something, instead of trying to figure it out, they would just drop it and go and have a sleep or go for a long walk. And then the inspiration would come in because they were able to drop all the preconceived ideas and allow for that new information to come in from, well, we can just call it the collective unconscious. But we can't be in both. You can't be in your super conscious orientation and be in your figuring out circumstance mode. You know, we think we can multitask, and particularly us girls, we say, oh, I'm really good at multitasking. I was able to bounce the baby, cook the dinner, and somehow manage, you know, a load of washing and a business at the same time. But even that, if you break it down, you're only ever focusing on one of those things at a time. The biology of men is a little different. That's because they were designed to go and hunt down an animal. That takes a lot of focus, right? They chase it down. So they don't necessarily notice all the things going on. The women, we were biologically designed to be able to bring up the children and pick out the right berries, not to take the poison berries back to the tribe, and to chat and talk to each other all the time as to where everything is. So our focus does switch very quickly from one thing to another, so we can handle a lot of things really well. But the thing is, it doesn't matter whether you're male, female, or anything else. You cannot focus on more than one thing at any time. So you might be a microsecond here, a microsecond there, but you're only ever doing one thing at a time. So same thing with your orientation. You can't be in the lens of your ego and in the lens of your superconscious. So if you catch yourself saying things like, I'm in my state of innocence now, I must be right. No, that's not you. That's your ego, right? Or you can be in the other lens, which is that state of openness and wonder, and I just don't know. I don't know what's here, right? And then that is not you being in your ego. You can't be in both. So that's a really interesting thing to just be aware of as well. So what's the difference? The lens of the ego, the circumstantial living, we're in that state of figuring out, as I said, we're assessing where things are at. Now, how do we make that assessment? Sometimes it's based on facts. Sometimes it's like, yep, I have this bill coming in and this much in the bank account. But what we really do is we assess how we're going by how that makes us feel. So we have thoughts around that. And so the thoughts and feelings are our reference points on how we're going. That then brings up emotions, doesn't it? And emotions are our driving force. So emotions help us to make decisions. Emotions give us our orientation of what to pay attention to. Emotions are things that drive us to take actions and adopt behaviors. We might find ourselves in a state of stress, some sort of, again, non-preferred emotion. And then we'll start to go into things like controlling things or manipulating ourselves or manipulating others or sticking to rules and dogmas that we've established that sometime at some point helped us solve a problem. It's like, oh, I've solved this problem before and this is how I did it, so this is the way it's going to happen. But ultimately, it's that if I fix this, then I get to have X, Y, Z. And it becomes the primary focus of our lives. And as we just said, your focus creates your reality. So if you're focusing on solving problems and assessing how you're feeling on how you're going, guess what you're going to create? You're going to create more problems. It's like a game of whack-a-mole. One comes up, you pop it, and then there's another one over here, and then you pop that one, and there's two more over here. You know, it's just a never-ending game, isn't it? So that becomes the focus. And of course, we're also perpetuating the feelings that we've been creating over and over again. So we just create more of that, and then we wonder, oh, why is life so hard? Because you're making it hard consistently, and that's what happens, right?
Yeah, we get pretty used to doing it. It sees us putting our focus and our attention on our circumstances, which is very different to what a conscious creator does, isn't it? It's like our circumstances being those things of our current reality, and we all have a bottom line. We all have things that need to be handled in our lives. Kids need to be fed, bills need to be paid, you name it, right? And it just needs to happen. But there's a big difference between someone who's consciously creating their bigger picture versus someone who's hung up on the circumstances and the situations that are going on in current reality, and their focus is all about that. It's a really significant difference in your use of creative energy and power And what usually happens with people that are hung up on the circumstances of current reality is that it's getting their emotional energy as well, because often when we're stuck there, we become quite emotional about that additional bill that came in and blasted the last few pennies out of the bank account sort of thing. The emotion flies into that. And what that sees us doing is putting more focus and attention and energy into creating more of those situations without knowing that we're doing it. Whereas when somebody's conscious about what's going on, conscious about how they're applying their focus and their attention in their lives, it sees them applying that focus on the things that they really love, but they're actually still getting their bottom line handled and managed as well. So what's going on with that? There's a significant difference, isn't there, to why this person here is able to create their bigger picture and handle their bottom line, where this person over the other side is all about that handling their bottom line and problem solving and doing very little, if anything, about creating a bigger picture beyond that. And so the significant difference is one is using structure and the other one is stuck in a limited structure. So there's the conscious use and application of structures that serve the conscious creator in handling their current reality versus somebody being stuck in and used by a limiting structure who's all about their current reality. So two people going about things quite differently, both have a bottom line that needs handling, and both have a very different outcome that's going on. It's getting created.
Absolutely. As creators, we still have bills to pay. We still have family to converse with. We've got things that come up, situations arise, they pop up all the time and that sort of thing. But the difference is we don't invest our emotions into those things, right? Only enough to get the job done that needs to get done. And we don't make it personal. If things are happening around us circumstantially, it's not a personal affair. It's not some personal attack on us, or it's not some sort of lack of something about us that created those situations. Perhaps it's some of the actions we took, a while ago that is now catching up with us, because sometimes that does happen, and that's okay. But if you don't make it personal and you don't get emotionally invested in it or creating a story around it, then you're not going to be sucked into that emotional vortex of rubbish, basically, which is going to see you is stuck in the trying to figure it out and assess it, and how am I feeling about this and what's going on that shouldn't be happening, and I'm starting to label it as this. That's a waste of your resources, because actually, do you know what the number one resource is for a creator, someone who's creating big things in their life? It's not money. Most people think that they have a money problem and they don't have the freedom and ability to go and create something because they don't have enough money. It's not that at all. The one resource that you need access to in order to create powerfully is your emotional mastery. Because without that emotional mastery, your emotions are getting sucked into your current reality, your circumstances, how you see others, how you see the world. I mean, look at what happened a couple of years ago. How many people's energy went into, what was going on, whether it was the fear of the pandemic, or whether it was the anti-establishment stuff, or it doesn't matter what camp you were in. If you were in it, you are wasting your most valuable resource by throwing your emotional energy into that stuff. Whereas if we handle what's going on and just be with what's going on and take the action that's relevant to us, and we stick to our knitting and we put our energy into what is it I would love to create. Now, during that time, we created, our business exploded because we did exactly that. We went, yep, okay, I know how things are. We were here in Victoria at the time. It was one of the worst lockdown places on earth that you could be in. We were in lockdown at one stage for 16 weeks, then we were out for about a month, and then we were back in again for I don't know how long the next one was. But we didn't buy into the circumstances. We just put our energy into what we needed to do while we were here. What were we creating? And our business went, exploded. We put our energy into what was true for us and what was important. So my point being is we want to be able to make sure that our emotional resource is going into creating the things that are true for us. Those unique expressions, our true nature and purpose, our gifts, our talents, the things that light us up. We put our energy into that, and we take care of current reality without too much emotion at all, just enough that we can take the action. Because the number one thing that drives how things unfold in our life is the actions that we're taking one step at a time along the way. And those actions and behaviors don't happen without the emotional investment. So one of the most important things you can do is to be looking after, and I don't mean protecting yourself with boundaries or any of that stuff, because then you're also putting the power back in your circumstances. What I'm talking about is knowing and following the steps towards the things that are true for your heart. That's the most important thing, isn't it? Because then the money takes care of itself. The relationships take care of themselves. All the things that you think you want or that you need in place first get taken care of because you're putting your emotional investment, your biggest resource, into following your heart on as many levels as you can.
Well, emotions are the key thing behind decision making. And so without your emotions, you can't actually make a decision, like literally. There was that guy who's the executive.
High-level executive, I think it's CEO or something.
And he used to make all the big decisions for the direction of the company. He got onto this concept that if I could just get rid of my emotions, then I can make some really hard-ass calls and not be worried about it. We can fly. So he went and had a frontal lobotomy.
Disconnected the prefrontal cortex, that beautiful, emotionally driving center of his brain.
And he thought that was going to be amazing, and it was, but not in the way that he thought. He found that he could no longer make decisions. So he couldn't choose what tie to put on in the morning, what socks to wear, what breakfast to have. Nothing. Like he was a shock duck from there on. So it was a great example of how important our emotions are. But we can use our emotions against our bigger picture. We can use them dysfunctionally to really shoot ourselves in the foot and be governed by our thoughts and feelings, which is more often than not the case for people. That's what we get addicted to, is being driven by our emotions, being governed. Or we can choose to use our emotions consciously, and then they become a very powerful tool in creating the things that we love. So we really need to be conscious about how we're applying our emotions, don't we? Where we're using them, how we're using them, that sort of thing. So that mastery comes into play, and it's just practice and awareness.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's a big difference between being forceful and being powerful. Power is where you are able to be with everything, but soften to it and to be open and to be vulnerable. That's really powerful. But where you find yourself, like you say, I feel like I need to harden up because I feel that's what's needed here. Harsh times, harsh things going on. So I've got to be strong. You start to move into that realm of what the ego would love you to do. It's trying to get you to protect yourself from what's going on, sort of thing. So I've got to close off to that. I've got to withdraw. I've got to be strong about it. It's just providing another opportunity to kind of get a feel for softening and opening and becoming more vulnerable, even when things are seemingly risky or whatever, undesirable at least. And getting a sense of, actually, okay, so when I'm soft, when I'm sort of sensitive to what's going on, it's okay. Like it works really quite well. And you start to become better and better at being open in those situations and not sort of closing yourself down. So, but it's practice, isn't it? It's like you say, it's not easy.
No.
Yeah. And true vulnerability is about being able to be with what's there, right? It's not that we say, I can't experience this emotion or I can't experience this feeling. I can't experience being dumped. Well, what you're going to do is you're going to fight and you're going to try and breathe underwater, and you're going to end up really smashed up. Whereas if you just go, my body's like a rag doll under the surf, and the sand's getting in all the places, but it doesn't matter. Eventually I'm going to bob to the top no matter what. It's not even that those things are necessarily wrong. It can be how we're defining it. Like even using words like, it's criticism and it's this and it's that. For me these days, it's just like, they're just in their stuff. They're seeing it through their lens, and they're quite, they have every right to see it in that particular way. Great, awesome. And so is it going to preclude me from getting on with what I'm creating? No. So is it personal? No. Good. Mm-hmm. It's cool. I'm glad you have a different opinion to me, or a different way of seeing things to me, because if we were all the same, it'd be bloody boring. So no, off you go. Thanks. And it's just like on Facebook, if you see something you don't like, I just scroll on. I don't get this. Let's stop and put a snide comment in there. It's like, what are you going to do? Convince them differently? What want to do that? That's not our job to correct everybody, and it's certainly not our job also to avoid all the non-preferred emotions. And I call them that because we are actually here as an expansive human to experience all of the emotional range, right? So at some point, someone in our life is going to die that matters a lot to us. We are going to experience grief and all the stages that go along with that. Do we want to avoid that? Our ego would say yes, but actually you didn't sign up for that. You signed up for the whole flipping lot. You're allowed to be with whatever's coming up for you, and you just be with it and you acknowledge it and you allow yourself to, when you're ready, move on. You know, there's nothing wrong with going into the depths of what you're feeling in a moment as a sensitive person, or just, I'm just going to put person, because you know, that's what makes us human. You know, meet someone who has no emotions, it's not really a fun place to be. But what we're not doing is we're not trying to fix it. We're not trying to define it a certain way and then assess it and then say how we're going is based on how we're feeling. But we are then still saying, I have these feelings going on, and I also acknowledge I've got things here in this life that I'm here to live out fully, purposeful with, and to really bring my gifts to the world in a certain way. Do I have to wrestle myself from this emotion into doing that? No, not immediately. At some point, I don't want to be in this anymore. Your nervous system will get fatigued of anger. It'll even get fatigued of depression after a while. Most people who are depressed, doesn't matter how long they're depressed for, eventually they will actually usually come out of it through a state of anger or something like that, because their nervous system gets bored. It has no contrast, so it doesn't actually realize it's even depressed anymore. So it has to do something else in order to bring them out, so then they can go back and experience the joy of depression again, which sounds weird, but that's what they're doing, right? It's an addiction to a certain feeling a lot of the time. And I do understand there are chemical imbalances for certain people, yada yada. I get it, but at the same time, it's still same operation, you know, whether they're medicated or what, it doesn't matter. There is something in the chat along those lines too I was reading. So emotional alignment internally is a big deal. It doesn't come spontaneous. No, it doesn't. Your default is to be in your shit, really. And whether your shit is happy, joy, let's force ourselves to positively think today, or let's be in our wallowing in our negative emotions or the stories of what shouldn't have happened to me in my life or what should have gone better or whatever, it doesn't matter. To avoid the emotions, as I said, it will actually just keep them popping up. You know, it's like anything that gets repressed will eventually come up. So it's okay to be with them and to process them, but there's actually tools available and structures that we can use to look at them and actually help them move on a little smoother, a little faster than what we tend to do when we just left to our own devices and just let it wallow through, right?
Yeah, well, our emotions form the richness and the depth of our experience of life. The only reason we have a negative connotation to some versus we're happy about others is just because of the lens we're looking through. The biases that we've taken on as kids is this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong, all of that stuff is just the filter that we created when we're interpreting our experiences back then. And so that was our childhood wounded interpretation about what was going on, most if not all the time, hugely inaccurate and unreliable, but we've sort of fixed it in place as being, oh, this is what that means, that's what this means, and based on this going on, I feel this way, therefore I need to do this to fix it, to change it or whatever. So, you know, you can see how when we're dysfunctionally using our emotions, we can have them driving our decision making and our action taking. When we suspend our need to make them mean anything, but rather be with them and just experience them from more of a state of curiosity. It's like, okay, geez, you know, this is how this feels. This is heavy, man. It's like, it's not desirable what's going on right now, the way I'm feeling. But don't stop at that, because there's another level where you can just be with, it's like, yeah, but what is actually going on here? What am I experiencing here? You know, let's just not throw it away and run and hide. Let's go, where is it in my body? How does it feel? What is the actual physical experience, the component of it? And you'll find there is one. Just be with that. Go a little bit deeper with being with it. What you'll find is there's not some monster there waiting to bite your head off, but that's what your ego thinks there is. So just be there, check it out, and realize, oh shit, I can actually be with everything. You know, that was heavy, and it didn't kill me to be with that. You know, in fact, I discovered some stuff about myself. What you'll find is that you'll be able to then start to be with all of your emotions, which gives you an opening to the fuller expression of your own life, the fuller experience of your own life. Because no longer are you denying aspects of yourself, no longer are you denying experiences that you think are going to invoke certain emotions that you don't want to have. Because a lot of the problems when we're creating things that we love in our life our ego will come in and tell us, mate, if you go that way, this is what's going to happen, and you're going to have these feelings and experiences, and you don't want that. And so it's enough to throw you completely off your direction in creating what you'd love in life, but it's all a smokescreen. So once you start to be able to be with anything, no longer are there any experiential or emotional conditions that can't exist. You'll realize actually it can all exist. I'm okay, you know. And once you get that, going for what you love is a completely new experience. It's something that makes everything obtainable then, because no longer are you freaking yourself out about what can and can't happen.
And you can just move through it a lot easier. It's like in the hero's journey, it's crossing the threshold, it's taking yourself to the next level. So the best way to get to that next level is through, and to actually go, yeah, that's allowed. It's like that Rumi poem with the guest house. And if you've not read it, go and look it up. It's called The Guest House, and it's about welcoming it all in. Just like welcome it in. So it doesn't mean it's going to stick to you and you're going to be wallowing in it forever. It's just like, no, I'm going to experience it, and then I get to move through it. I get to really get access to the truth of my heart and to be expressing that fully. Well, there are tools that we use to help shift that through on a more structural level, so that we're not wallowing, because sometimes we think we're dealing with it in our head, but we end up just ruminating over it. And as Craig was saying, based on the definitions and the meanings we put to stories. I had a client a few years ago who spent 20 minutes telling me this story about how her and her little brother were thrown into the car in the middle of the night by their drunk mother and driven around the town to the different drug dealers as she picked up her drugs. They could have been killed, and then they got home and then she threw them back into bed again. And I said, okay, now tell me just the facts. Take all the emotion and all the emotive words out of it. Yeah, it wasn't the right thing to do probably as a mother and all that sort of thing, and you probably wouldn't do it and I wouldn't do it. It doesn't matter, but tell me the facts. And it came down to something along the lines of, Mum woke us up, took us for a drive, visited a few of her friends, came home, we went to bed. Right? It just happened to be in the middle of the night. And that was it. And just looking at it like that, I said, there's a bit of a different story going on here now, isn't there? You didn't die. Yes, you could have died, but you didn't. It was just a matter of going, all right, you get to choose how you make this play out in your head. Do you want to ruminate on the old story and make it mean that you weren't loved and that, nobody really ever cared for you and all that sort of stuff? Does that serve you now? No, it doesn't, because you're creating shitty relationships where you get beat up by your spouse. Don't do that. Let's start a new story. So let's talk about the power of using structure to handle our current reality rather than the emotional structure of buying into the story and the things that are happening there. So let's talk about a structure that we used when we were well in our shit, and then we used the structure and we were able to free up our energy to become really powerful creators, and it just didn't have the harness on us. So when we first came together nearly 12 years ago, we were very functional adults. We both came in with credit card debt, with other things, relationship baggage, all that sort of thing. It's one of those things. It wasn't a horrific credit card. I've heard credit cards like 80,000 and stuff like that, but essentially I had 13 grand, which had basically accrued as a single mum with 3 kids and having a business that I every now and again had to prop up a little bit, for whatever reason. One of those reasons ended up being one of my staff members took a shit ton of money that I didn't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter, right? I created it all. So I had this credit card debt of about 13 grand that kept sort of bumping up and down. And you can imagine the interest I was paying on that little brother, so and so. Anyway, and you came in with one as well.
Mine was 10,000, and it just sat there. If it went down, it just fluctuated, but it boom, straight back up to this $10,000 ceiling.
Yeah, absolutely. And we both having conversations like, how does it go to the level of whatever the bank says it should go to? But we still, we haven't had to go out and get another loan yet or anything like that, but it seems to be sitting at this thermostat level of what's going on. And anyway, every month bill would come in. Every month I would delve into shame and pain over the money and all that sort of stuff. I don't know how you felt about yours.
I was like guilty and shameful and just feeling like something was wrong with me. Like, it's like, man, I'm broken in some way. I don't know what it is, but I definitely need.
And you must have been feeling so good about teaming up with another broken person. Oh, like, she's just as shit as me.
Probably felt good.
And here I am on the outside trying to look clever and like businesswoman, all that sort of stuff. These credit cards kept coming up and looming on us, and every now and again it would just get to a point of there's no other choice but to put something on the credit card. And one of those particular days, it was a day we were leaving to go on holidays, and we're going to be going out of town and out of range. And at the last minute, the electricity bill arrived, which was due while we were away. So I thought, I've got to get this paid, otherwise we're going to come back to the house. The fridge will be off, freezer will be ruined, all the drama stories you can imagine. I went and got my credit card and went to put in the numbers, pay the bill, and it went credit card declined. I went, oh shit. I looked at the balance. Yep, it's done. It's dead. Like there is nothing here and I have nothing in the bank account. So I trotted over to Craig and said, have you got anything left on your credit card? He goes, I think so. I said, would it be this much? He goes, oh, maybe. Let's give it a go. So we went over and put the numbers in for the credit card, sort of biting on our back teeth, hoping to hell it would go through. And it did. It went through. It's like, oh, thank God. Right. And then I remember thinking, this is so wrong. We're going on a holiday. So I'm taking time off away from my business. We're going to be off for this period of time. We're going to travel. We're going to put petrol in the tank. There's all sorts of things we're going to do. And largely a lot of the things were taken care of, but it was still a certain number of things we had to pay for. Yeah. We had the two boys with us, my two boys with us. I just remember leaving going, this is a really shitty way to go away on holidays. Just feeling like we're at the bottom of the bottom. Like there's nothing, there's no wriggle room here. There's nothing. I decided that I was over it. And now within a period of time when we got back, we came across some mentors of ours, Mitch and Mills, who taught us how to use a structure, which is a bit similar. The Aussies will know this guy, the Barefoot Investor. It was a bit similar to Barefoot Investor's buckets of how to handle money. And these guys taught us a process. And we've since refined it to be in alignment with the universal principles that we've learned, which is the prioritization of how we power up our subconscious mind in the order of importance. What should be the most important thing? Well, it's actually you and what you're creating in the future. So the first thing that we do is we have a money machine account, what we call the no touchy account. It's the money that we put aside that's for our potential viability, but also for the money that's going to make money. And then the next thing we pay is for ourselves to go and splurge. And the last thing we pay is the bills. And then in between, there's a whole structure and there's a reason why we do it in that way. Anyway, we employed their version of it, which is pretty close. And it felt like it was dragging on. It did, didn't it? Like three or 4 months down the track, it's like, all right, we're still doing it. We're sticking to it because what we were doing before was completely shit. So now we're doing this. It's doing something. And there's certain things I have to do, like on occasion. And again, we teach this. I had to make phone calls to different suppliers and things like that. And anyway, long story short, we did start to make some inroads. The cards started to come down. The money started to flow in a slightly different way. We even started getting a little bit more income. Within a few months, because of our stalwartness to stick to the structure, something really amazing happened. I think it was about 4 or 5 months in. Anyway, I got a letter from my mum's solicitor, my mum's family solicitor, and it said, you are due for an inheritance. And I went, well, this is really interesting because my mum's not dead, my dad's not dead, and any of the few dead relatives I do have, I don't think any of them would leave me any money. Anyway, it turned out that my stepdad had left money to all 6 children, 3 from my mum and 3 for his kids. And we all got left money, which was really weird because I had never lived with the guy. Mum and he got it together when I was 19 or 20 or something. So I'd already sort of was doing my own thing at uni and all that sort of thing. Go for dinner every now and again, or a picnic or a hike or, whatever. But not to any degree was I a family member to him. I'd be the one kid I would expect wouldn't get any inheritance at all. But I did. I got equal inheritance to all the other 5 children. And I'm like, look at that. And it was very obvious where that money was meant to go. It was just like, that's going to the credit cards. And so we paid the credit cards out. We rang the banks and went through the arduous process of cancelling credit cards. I don't know if you've ever tried to do that, but it's quite a thing. And we chopped up the credit cards. And at the time, I vowed, I'll never have another credit card again. Now, that was because I was dysfunctional with my relationship with credit cards, my circumstance of having a credit card. Now we have a credit card. It's not a problem because we use it functionally with the way that we run the business and all that sort of thing. And it gives us frequent flyer points and travel insurance and all the things that we want for the lifestyle that we live. But we don't have a credit card problem. It just gets paid every month without an issue because we have a different relationship with it. Whereas if we had the same relationship, it would be a disaster for us to have another credit card. So there's an example, but basically we took the emotion out of the money scenario thing. We just went, okay, well, I acknowledge occasionally this feels a bit shaky. Occasionally I have to make some nervous phone calls. Occasionally this happened, but in the bigger picture, it was handled by the structure. And then we were able to create other outcomes. And, this has happened more than once. I had to buy someone out of a business once, which was expensive. Same sort of thing. Took the emotion out of it. It's just like, this is what's happening. Here's the structure. Let me take care of that. And the money showed up. Again, just out of the blue. I sold a property that wasn't even on the market. And it was a commercial property in a downturn commercial property market. And it was like, how does that even happen? second? Where do you get this phone call out of the blue when you need to buy someone else out of a business? Like within the week that someone said, I need to be bought out, and this guy rings me and says, do you want to sell that property? I'm like, yeah, but I had it on the market 4 years ago, but I took it off because I was bored of nothing happening.
When you're emotional about what's going on, you close yourself off to the new insights and to the synchronicities that are available. They're there waiting for you to open back up to them. But when you're in your emotion about it dysfunctionally, then you're just not seeing them. And the magic can't happen. It can't become part of your experience. But once you're not emotional and you're actually applying emotion to a bigger picture, and you get to be that way because you have structure in place that handles what's going on, then the magic can flow. You know, there was no force involved in that money showing up, was there? It was just like, oof, out of seemingly nowhere, and more times than once. Too many times to be able to deny anymore that that's what's going on here. So it's quite magical.
Absolutely. And that's very explainable by, you know, here we have this incredible nervous system. Even if you look at the structure of it, think about it. You got the brain up here and the spinal cord that goes down through your vertebrae. That thing's set up like a flipping antenna. Like it's transmitting and receiving all the time, plus your 5 senses. But every second you're taking in 400 billion bits of information from your senses and from the energy fields. It's been proved now. So there's 400 billion bits of information that's coming in, and we can only focus on 2,000 bits of information. Now, if we're emotional and we're worried about our circumstances and our survival and referring to our limiting beliefs, as Craig was talking about before, we're only seeing the 2,000 bits that are going to protect us and help keep us in a state of feeling safe. And we're going to be in that figuring out mode. That's why we refer to those feelings so diligently. And we don't have access to there's a shit ton of information that you are not paying attention to, but then becomes available to us when we just open ourselves up to, look, I don't know how this is going to play out, but I'm not going to get emotional about it. I'm going to let a structure take care of it. And then I'm going to see things in different ways. You know, synchronicities and coincidences and guys ringing out of the blue. Do you want to sell that property? Holy shit. That, you know, that's transmitting and receiving stuff, right? That's high level stuff without even knowing how you're doing it. But that can happen all the time, which is super cool. So, and that's just giving us access to new stuff. So what we'll do now is we'll just do a little exercise. It only takes a couple of minutes to do this, but it gives you a little demonstration for yourself as to, you know, how the two different orientations give you different information and different access. Take a moment and just, first of all, intend to get the benefit of the exercise. So the thing that we're about to do. So just make an intention. I'm going to do this and I intend to see what it is that it's designed to show me. And we're going to use our imagination, because imagination is awesome. It's one of those things that gives us access to past perceptions and stories, and it also gives us access to potentials and our future and what we would love, and it puts us in a closer state to our superconscious awareness, to accessing some of that 400 billion bits of information per second, than if we're trying to figure something out, because we can only figure out something from what we already know. It's a very, very small pool as opposed to the much bigger pool of the collective unconscious, and even, you know, just your own intuition. So take a moment, set your intention, and then when you're ready, just close down your eyes so you can access your imagination, because it's quite hard to access it if you've still got your eyes open and you're looking at all the things around you. They keep you firmly anchored in your current reality. And then in your imagination, what I'd love you to do is just start to piece together and let your imagination go wild. All the bits of your dream life. Like if you could just start waving a magic wand, and I know, yes, okay, no one's waving magic wands here, but just imagine it's possible that you could have any level of lifestyle that you want. And start to bring in things like the houses you'd like to live in, the properties, the landscape. What sort of things are there? Are you in an urban landscape that you absolutely love? Or are you in deep in nature? Or are you on a ranch? What is your dream life? You might even put in a car or some other material things in there. What sort of travel are you experiencing? What are the people like that are in your life? Your immediate, you know, your intimate partners, your family, your friends, your communities. And what sort of things are you doing to be expansive? What things do you love creatively, vocationally? What sort of things? So just start to bring together a full picture of how you would love life to be if you got to have it however you wanted it to be. Let's get a real sense of that. And what sort of feelings come up if you were to make yourself available to that reality. And once you've built a little bit of a picture, now what I want you to do is to see yourself where you are now in relation to it and start to see what lies in between here and there. So first of all, what are all the worries and fears that come up? Is there a sense of overwhelm? It's such a big thing to create. Or are you worried that you'll be disappointed if you never get there? So maybe you start to pare back the vision, like maybe the house isn't so big or so grand or so far out or in such a beautiful place. Maybe you pare it down, take the magnitude out of it. What sort of stories and references come up for you? What's happened to you in the past when you've tried to go for that? Or when you've noticed someone else has gone for it? Maybe they did it and then you define them as better than you. Or maybe they did it and then they lost it. You thought, oh, that must have been painful. I don't want that experience. What can you see here? What sort of emotions come up when your beliefs get to have the focus? How does the dream life look now? What sort of concepts? What sort of things are going to have to change? And when you have those beliefs and concepts in the way of you getting your dream life, the fullest version of who you want to be and how you want to live, how close does it feel out of 10? Give yourself a score. 0 is, I am nowhere near creating this end result. And 10 being, no, I'm living it already, baby. I've got my dream life. All right. So give yourself a little score. When all the beliefs and stories and wonder and everything is in the way, what's coming up for you? What's your score out of 10? And when you've got it, perhaps just pop it in the chat. It'll be private. So just put it there just to record it. And don't worry, I'm not going to leave you in this state, but just pop a number out of 10. Beautiful. All right, great. And now just imagine that this little army of structures comes in to take care of all the things that are going on in your current reality. All the things that are in the way of you getting your dream life. So things like money structures and intimate relationship structures and extended relationship communications and structures that help you to unfold your purpose and your vocation. Structures that open up possibilities for your creative expression. Structures for your health, for your energy, and for mastering your emotions so that you can free them up to allow you to make decisions and see opportunities that actually help you to unfold your dream life. Feeling that things are made available to you, all the resources, time, energy, focus, money, love, are made available for you to bring about all the steps that will unfold your end results, as if by magic. Feel what that feels like. And it's all happening. You're still taking action. You're still doing what needs to be done. You're taking care of your bottom line. And you're creating powerfully in favor of your heart. And now just take a moment and give yourself a score out of 10. How close does it feel now? 0 being, nope, I'm still feeling stuck. Right through to 10, oh, I'm living it, baby. And when you have it, just pop it in the chat. Great. Great. Okay, so we had some moving forward and some going backwards, interestingly enough. So from the one that went backwards, if you wouldn't mind just popping in the chat what your experience was of that, we might be able to talk to it, because usually that means that we've sort of put another concept on top of what was already made available. But we'll let you take your time to put that into the chat while we address it. Most of the time, not always, this is why it's interesting to have an opposite, is because most of the time, most people experience a shift forward. And it was literally like a couple of minutes of getting, a shift of orientation. We're starting to see things in a different light where things are being taken care of. But it is true that some people do go backwards, and it's good that we've got this example. So in the chat, it says external systems versus internal systems. If you can elaborate a little bit more on that, that'd be fantastic, just so that we can speak to that a little bit more. Sometimes it's like some people have the objection that they don't like the idea of systems, like having a structure that they have to follow. But my answer to that is that a mentor of mine I had about 20 years ago once told me, discipline is freedom. And initially I almost felt like going, discipline is freedom, what a horrible thing. Like, I want to be a free fairy dancing off into the distance, having a great time and all that sort of stuff. What do you mean discipline is freedom? But he was absolutely right, because what he was talking about was having structures in place where you've already made a decision around something and it's just taken care of. When we put that money structure in place, it was no longer a decision we had to make every week. It was like, no, that is happening. I don't care how I feel about it. I don't care what's happening. All that matters is that is getting done, because what we've been doing has not been working. That's the only obvious thing that we have, is that the results don't lie, and what the structures we were using unconsciously are not working. So we started using the conscious structure, and then making sure that we were employing it no matter what. And then it started to work for us. The magic started to show up. Yeah, okay, great. So this is almost what I'm talking about. So external systems coming to sort things out versus having internal systems. So I become dependent on the external system coming and sorting things out for me rather than me doing it. It puts me away because it's not in my control. I'm just dependent on external systems sorting things out for myself. Very good point. We actually do want some of that to happen. We want our current reality stuff to be handled. So we're talking about, here's the 5 key areas: health, wealth, relationships, that includes intimate relationships, extended relationships, vocation, whether that's a business and or some other purpose or a creative expression, and lifestyle. So there are our 5 main areas of current reality. Now, if we live in the illusion that we must have all creativity in handling our current reality, we're actually conning ourselves into thinking, I'm not being creative. That was me, like saying, I just want to be a fairy, skip off into the forest and do creative things. I don't want discipline. But that's not where we want our power to be. We want our power to be put into the creation of the true things, like the end results of things. These things that are happening in our current reality are not here now because of now. They're here because of stuff we've done in the past. So why would we ever want to invest our emotional energy into that? We let the structures take care of that, set a new foundation for us so that then we can go forward, look forward, and actually create the future that we're trying to create. The power is that we're putting something in place to take care of that. Now, I don't automate my whole money structures, by the way. What I do when we have our day for doing our money organization, which happens every 2 weeks for us, is I actively sit down and go through the process of transferring the money. I could set up the whole automated system where it just goes, on this day, trigger this, and it goes do. I don't do that. There's a reason for that, because I want to do the structure so that my subconscious gets what's the order of importance, the priority of things. How is life set up in accordance to me and the universal laws that support me as a powerful creator, support you as a powerful creator, and then we get to put our focus into creating moving forward.
Yeah, so it is really a question in those things that are deserving of our creative power versus the things that just need to be sorted out. So the bottom line, current reality things, they are things that exist that need to be taken care of, but not your genius put in there and used up there. Because you know what it's like when you get emotionally involved and stretched over a barrel in relation to bills, whatever it is, whatever's going on, your current reality, and you're at your wit's end, you've got nothing left. A lot of people usually experience exhaustion. It's really bloody tiring because that's where all of your energy's going, but you feel like you're getting nowhere. It's like, shit, another bill, another same deal thing popping up, and you see it over and over again, and it just baffles you, but you're tired as a result of it. How much energy do you feel like you've got to put into and apply to those things that you really love in your life? There's bugger all left in reality. And so that's what structure takes care of. It's like, no, you set this thing in place so that it can just cruise away doing what it's designed to do, and you keep that energy to apply over here. And then you've actually got some heart and soul to put into and behind what it is you're creating. It's really important that you do, because creating those things is about putting your emotional energy into them. That's how we create that beautiful discrepancy between your true end result and your current reality. It's sort of different to feeling like I'm not applying my genius in this area because I'm becoming reliant on the structures doing that. Well, the structures aren't there designed to apply your genius. They're designed to free you up to apply your genius fully in your life, the way that it was designed to be applied.
Absolutely. I'd much rather redirect my energy from all that circumstantial stuff. As I said, it's a reflection of your past anyway. It's not really what's going on now. It's just that's where it's showing up. I'd rather turn up to the easel to paint a painting with a completely open genius that can just go, yeah, cool, let's do this. Let's see what happens when we mix these colors. When you're writing your books, Craig doesn't want to have his genius wrapped up in, let me creatively sort out how I'm going to pay my bills this week, or how I'm going to have that conversation with that kid next week, that sort of thing. We're not tired when it comes to creating. We're not tired when it comes to showing up for the business and, up at 5 to come and talk to you guys at 6 a.m. It's super cool. The energy goes into everything that we love, and not into the life-sucking current reality stuff that can easily be taken care of, because actions speak louder than thoughts and feelings. We hear actions speak louder than words, but the truth is that we're constantly battling our own thoughts and feelings, or we're creating thoughts and feelings that help drive us forward. And if we're being sucked into the current reality stuff, the thoughts and feelings get to have the power. But it's always our actions that will win. If we're taking actions in favor of our genius, then we are powering up our subconscious that we want more of that. We want to have more time. We want to have more energy. We want to have more love. We want to have more creativity, as opposed to being drawn into circling the drain of current reality.
Yeah, well, and with the actions speaking really loudly to your subconscious mind, which is that aspect of you that knows no limits. When it knows where the power's going, that is what gets created. So if it's seeing that you're all stressed out and completely focused on your undesirable bottom line and trying to fix and solve problems, then all it's going to do is say yes to that. And what you're going to experience when that happens are more results that are in alignment with those undesirable things having power. That they're what matter in your life. So subconscious says yes to them. You have more experiences that look like evidence of that's true. They have the power, I don't. I'm powerless to these things, but I'm like a slave to them, so I must focus on them all the time. I must give them all my energy. But it's not actually evidence that proves that to be true. When you have more experiences of those things happening, it's just evidence that that's what you've been putting your focus and your power into. And that's therefore what the subconscious has been saying yes to. Again, it's really structural. And so when you take that focus over here onto what you're all about, then subconscious sees that action and knows that, that's what's important. This person wants to create these things that they love. And one of those actions that you can take is to put structures in place to handle your bottom line. It's a very direct communication with your subconscious that your intention in putting those structures in place is to free your energy up to create the things you love. Subconscious sees that. It's like it knows your intention behind your action, and it says, okay, so yeah, structure's going in so that that can be handled. Because this is what matters. And so this is what matters has got the power. It sees you creating more of what matters in your life.
Because your focus creates your reality, and you're focusing on that. And this is just, it doesn't have the power anymore, which is the opposite to how most people live. So that you can actually free up that emotional resource, that emotional mastery, to bring it into exactly what you were just talking about then, the powering up your genius creative side, becoming that true expansive being in the world. Because true creators, true magicians use structure. They don't just use the structure of creating, which is happening over here when we've got the energy and the time to do it, to be super powerful. They have structures in place to manage their current reality and to not make it have the power. Absolutely. Amazing. Very good. So thank you so much. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your input, and we'll see you again soon.
Yeah.
All right.
See you. Bye.